So it's a dark and rainy day today as we start the third in my series of discussion on better contribution. But regardless of what it looks like outside, it's a good day to have a chat and continue on the thought process of linking everything together. So I talked a little bit about the why and why, just asking the question of why something happens or why you need to make a change or, these sorts of things. And then moving into like thinking of that long term. So knowing what this is, how does that look like at the end and the journey that you take to get there? Because if you're focused in on just the now, there may be other consequences that you don't consider in the long game. And so today we're going to talk about kind of the end state of that, which is the outcome and the purpose for why you're doing something. So asking something along the lines of what's the point. And even more so, like I'd mentioned in the introductory video, there's this idea that it goes beyond just what's the point or why am I doing this, but also why is what you're doing good. And you got to really be able to define good, because a lot of people will just do things because they're on autopilot. It's something that's comfortable for them, or they just kind of follow their gut reaction and they're not necessarily considering all these other elements or really understanding why doing something actually has a positive impact. So a good example for me of those types of things is the idea of the scramble. So a lot of people will put themselves into a position. I'll just speak from my own experience. I would sometimes get into a predicament where I really, I get frustrated about something. And that just happens because you have a certain way of doing things or a certain approach and others have another approach. And, and people might hit your pet peeve or, something like that. And, so for me, I want to make sure that I can communicate those things. A good example is for a long period of time, like a couple of years ago, my Saturdays were my me days. Everything is off. I don't want to answer the phone. I don't want to talk to people. I just need to kind of internalize and adjust. And that's great that you might need to do that. But if you're not explaining yourself out to people, you're not really considering other people's thoughts, and for me that's something that's important, because the benefit to you, if there's just a you benefit continuously, what's the overall benefit? Like, we're talking about contributing and making more of an impact in society, and so if you're just continuously taking care of yourself, where's the benefit? Now, you definitely want to recharge, and I'm definitely not saying you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff in order to make more of that positive difference. But everyone's at a different wavelength. So you'll be tired, but 3 other people won't be. So you need to have that communication in play for something like that. And again, like considering, what does good look like? Good looks like, in that situation, my ability to recharge and other people's ability to understand that. And in that sense, then you start to see the broadening of the positive impacts from that, right? So I get rested, others understand and won't necessarily take it personally, which might kind of start breaking the chains of trust. But more than that, they will also start to understand a new element about me. Maybe they didn't understand it before, but now they do. And so what's happened is, bond level up, +1. So you're strengthening that tie. People are getting to understand you better, and for their own purposes as well as your own purposes, there's the understanding of strengths and weaknesses. Where do I need to support someone like this? And where can I kind of step aside and let them kind of do their thing? So to me, just in that example, I've given you the context of, what am I thinking about would be good, and so, thinking about, other situations, I know it's frustrating to like wait in line at airports, but there's an overall good of making sure that people are safe and you're on the plane with like 200 other people. So that's an important thing too. And so if you're trying to do something, like I find often, whether or not it's at the workplace or sometimes just at home, if I'm traveling with someone or whatever, there's this immediate need and rush, and in that case, I don't necessarily try and like impose my thought on someone to say like, hey, just chill out or whatever. And that's kind of a natural inclination that we want to do. But instead, I'm thinking about, okay, knowing that I might say these things and that'll rile someone up or get them upset, what does good look like in this situation? How do I diffuse the situation so they're not throwing a huge panic, but then also that they understand that I'm respecting their kind of anxiety or whatever, and we're not continuing to propagate it, so there's kind of like this whole pull of trying to define those elements, because if you don't do that, you continuously fall into this cycle of like whatever you want to call it, like illogical action, or these frustrations that you're not being understood by other people, and so forth. And it's that real element of getting to know, because good is also perceptive. So something that's good for you may not be good for someone else. So you want to understand the good of the whole so that you can package those things together, which will then kind of cascade back towards those other actions, those other things that I talked about in previous videos. Right? So when you put all three of these things together, you have why you're trying to do something, or why something is happening. What does that look like in the long term? And then what does good look like coming out of that? So if I try to make a change, what would a positive change look like? How do I get there? And why am I doing it, so that I know what I need to fix? So those are kind of the three key elements in kind of discovering the path, and walking the path, and collaborating with others to get to that point, and expanding on communication and other things. The last thing that I'll talk about in the next video is about knowing your limits, because you, as the actor of enacting that path, you'll only be able to do so much. So it'll be probably the most interesting chat out of all of these, because that one's a very personal one for each person, right? You can see someone else's vision, or you can jump on board theirs, or you can develop your own, but your frustrations will always come out of your inability to do something, and your wins and your positivity will come out of a victory that you've accomplished something. So anyway, more to come on those things. Thanks for hanging out on the third item, and we'll wrap this up in the next video.